Do you have that bucket list destination that you've always dreamt of traveling to?
If you go to a workshop, typically, there's quite a lot of education that goes on.
And really, I use that as a way to get in cheaper than if I was going to do it myself. If you have that one thing that you want, I would do a workshop.
Whether it's a tour or a workshop, you're investing a lot of money. So you want to make sure you're getting to the right place at the right time with the right people.
Before such a trip, sleep for 2 or 3 days. Because if we get there and the light's good and things are moving, then it's game on. All right, so this week's podcast, the main subject we're getting to now is, do you have that bucket list destination that you've always dreamt of traveling to? Today, we're going to break down some tactics on the best ways to find the photo tour or workshop of your dreams. Guys, I have a whole list of tips and insights. How do you want to do this?
So I think it's important, first of all, because you kind of made a distinction between the two when you said
Yes.
tour or workshop. So it's
Yes.
important that we define the two. A tour would be you're going to hire someone to basically get you to a location where you've got the species that you want to photograph, but they aren't necessarily giving you any advice. They're not giving you any education on how to photograph or even how to photograph that species necessarily. A lot of people that lead photo tours, they're right there shooting with you. And so they aren't necessarily as concerned with you getting good images. You know, that's not fair to make that generalization, but that's not the focus. If you go to a workshop, typically, there's quite a lot of education that goes on in a workshop. And generally, that workshop leader is going to do whatever they have to do to make sure that you get the best shots that you can get while you're there. So what I would say, if you're looking at a tour, you know, look at the images that you have the potential to get, but know that you might not get the help you need to get those images. If you need to have that assistance, if you're a newer photographer, there's nothing wrong with that. You go into a location, you want to maximize the opportunity that you have, then I would definitely look at a workshop. And I would look at a workshop with somebody that already has that portfolio, because they're not going to be as
Preoccupied?
yes, with taking their own shots and getting their own images. So I think that's very important. You know, if I'm going to go shoot moose, I'm going to look at a guy like Mark Raycroft, who's got every possible moose image that he can ever hope to have, and understand that, you know, he's not going to be as concerned with getting images as he is about maybe maximizing my time. That's kind of the way that I would look at it. Mark doesn't do moose workshops at this point in time. Not saying that's outside the realm of possibility, but that, you know, that is definitely something that I would look at if I'm looking at doing a workshop. I want to find somebody that's, you know, they've got everything that they would ever need, so they're going to be able to spend the time with me and whoever else might be there. But that,
the other
for me,
thing with
that's
the
the
workshop
distinction.
is they will have, oftentimes at the end of the day, you'll get together in a room and everybody will show images and you get instruction at that point too, which is kind of cool. Whereas a
critique
tour,
time. Yep.
you're probably going to go sit by a fire and drink a beer or have conversation with everybody. So it's not as instructional. So I think that is a good distinction. That was a good description.
And sometimes on tours, I mean, it depends on the guide. There can be some instruction, but you can't necessarily count on it unless you ask beforehand and clearly know that's going to occur. And you should not assume that there'll be instruction on a tour. So yeah, it's very important at the beginning of this discussion to differentiate those two, photo tours and photo workshops. And of course, when you're searching out these dream destinations and the trip of a lifetime that you want to do, you can certainly look for both of these and ask questions about that. something I've come up with is make sure that when you're researching a destination, whether it's Africa, Antarctica, the Yukon, whatever it might be where you want to go, and you're researching, once again, you've decided you are comfortable with a tour and the parameters of a tour, or you prefer a workshop with more instruction. Knowing that out of the gate, spend time online and researching. And keep in mind, when you're looking at things online, that's the best eye candy that's being presented. So keep an open mind. Don't set your expectations too high. Those are the best results over many trips to these destinations that you're seeing. They're certainly obtainable, but you have to keep that in mind, that there's so many variables on these tours when you're researching, and be aware of that. Another thing is to make sure when you are looking into any given company is to look for reviews and read those and Google them. Don't just look at them on their website. Google the company name and reviews and see what comes up and read up on that. Also be aware, of there's so many things when considering a tour that you have to pause, take a step back and think about, your own limitations physically, what you want to do, your own comfort level, depending what the tour is offering, the accommodations, the foods available, the meals, are they all provided? Are they all, cooked by a chef, or are you in a canvas tent? Where are you, and what is your dream trip for nature and wildlife photography? And the duration factors into that. There can be workshops that you could sign up for 1 afternoon in the Rockies by an instructor to learn about the species that is of interest and how to photograph them and how to best use your equipment for that. Or it could end up being a week photo tour somewhere longer to the Arctic. So all of these things can make for a very different experience.
I would say, like, the tour, the bad thing about tours is a lot of times you don't get the time. A tour is a tour. You're going to go out and see, like, if they say you're going to see 10 species, but you really only care about one of them, you might get a tenth of that time to film or photograph that one species. So if you're just out there trying to fulfill a destination and you don't care and you want to get all these species, but you don't have a lot of time with them, you may not get that perfect shot. You're going to get to see them all, but you don't get the time that you want. Whereas with the workshop, a lot of times, I don't think I've ever really done a workshop or a tour. I've done a workshop with Barrett. When we go to Lake Clark, that's essentially a workshop. But we're going for one thing. We're going for bears. And that's all we're going to photograph that whole time. And really, I use that as a way to get in cheaper than if I was going to do it myself. If you're going with a group of people, the workshop is the way to go to that destination, because you can't drive to it. You can't boat to it. There's limited accommodations when you get there. So oftentimes a workshop is the best way to get to a particular location. And that was but I knew that if we're there for 5 days, it's 5 days and nothing but bears. So I'm going to probably get what I want to get. And it's a very loose workshop. That's the other thing, is you're dependent on your instructor, and depending on the ability of everybody that's on that workshop, that will kind of dictate what you're going to get out of the workshop. We tend to go with the same people every time, and everybody knows what everybody can do. And there's not a lot of chatter. There's not a lot of instruction, because we all know what we're doing. We're just all there to get really good shots of some particular subject. So I would say those are the two distinctions too, is workshops are probably going to get you, if you have that one thing that you want, I would do a workshop. And
group size is important, right? When you think about workshops or tours.
Group size and group makeup. The point that Mike just made about maximizing your time on a species. So if it is a tour, if you're with, a group of strangers, so to speak, everybody might have that different species that they want to focus on. And so the tour leader has to weigh that out. If you go with a group of like-minded individuals, or if you're going to go on a photo tour, if you can get 3 or 4 people that sign up with you, a lot of times, that makes for a lot better dynamic. It still doesn't mean that you're going to get to do whatever you want to do on the tour necessarily. The group leader is still going to make that call. But at least if he knows that there's 4 or 5 people interested in one species, that's where they're going to focus efforts and give you that opportunity for the majority of the group. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, you can't always do that. I mean, it's not always practical. And the other, when you're researching, as you were talking about earlier, Mark, I'm never, I haven't done a lot of these, but I haven't been afraid to ask the group leader for, they'll always put a few reviews on their website, but they put the shiniest review. It's kind of like the shiniest images. They'll put the shiniest reviews on the website. Don't be afraid to ask them to talk to a few people that have gone in the past. They'll give you an email. You can make contact, and no guarantee that person's going to spend the time to talk to you, but it's always helpful to try to research it as much as possible so that you know what to expect. Because a lot of these, whether it's a tour or a workshop, you're investing a lot of money. So you want to make sure you're getting to the right place at the right time with the right people. And I think those are all things to add into that research element that you were talking about.
And if there's a specific guide that a person has their heart set on accompanying on a tour or a workshop, to make sure to clearly ask that the time that they're signing up for, that guide will be there, because that's not always the case. It's sometimes loosely described that this person is leading it, and then they find out that someone else is doing it for that week. So clearly ask for that up front. And something else is to be prepared. I mean, not just the parameters. So the kind of workshops or tours I envision, there's a certain niche that I could cater to. And if I was thinking of caribou or moose or something like that, you would want to make sure the people were comfortable with what that trip was about. If they're on the ground, is it a camping trip and hiking the tundra? And being prepared to, when the weather cooperated and the light cooperated, to be prepared to work hard at it. They're there. Mm-hmm. They've taken this time out of their life. It's a potentially trip of a lifetime. They want to come away with results. They want to be dedicated to work hard at it. And something to think about is that make sure that before such a trip, sleep for 2 or 3 days. Because if we get there and the light's good and things are moving, then it's game on, and we're going to do the best to maximize it. The whole group, right? And again, group size is something that depends on destination. It's something to be very aware of when booking any tour or workshop, to make sure it's fitting your expectations. But, something that I've seen again and again or read, and I haven't led any tours or workshops yet, nor have I been on them, but I know of many colleagues that lead them, and I know many people who have done them. But there's a great piece of advice is to rest beforehand, get lots of sleep, because you're there to live it up every day you can. And, there may be an opportunity. Think about our trip in the Northern Rockies last year, our segment of podcast we did the day length's long there, and if it's pouring rain, you get a break. You might get to have a nap or something. At that time of year, it's not dark till 11 p.m. at night. You want to work the good light. You've got to be ready to go. And it can become tiring, but it's worth the hard work and effort on these photo workshops and tours to make the most of it. So just be prepared for that, for your own benefit, what you come away with. Another thing is to, no matter where you are, take that social media stuff. As much fun as it is when we're at home sitting on the couch, park it, Take your selfies on the tundra or in Antarctica with the penguin, to document your trip. But park it and just be there in the moment on these tours and workshops. It's a destination that you've craved, you've wanted to be at. Be there, because, as we've talked about in so many other different ways before, you never know what's going to happen. Something magical could happen right then. Don't worry about the social media or any of that connection. Be in the moment for this, limited period of time, and take it all in, breathe it in. And that's another thing, is pick the right destinations for that, what you dream to do, prepare for it. A lot of people, it's a great incentive to get fit, knowing that they're going to go on trips like this. It's something that keeps me that way. In my young age, I've got to keep fit. So I want to do caribou again this year, right? I want to be able to hike for sheep. It's something that I'm cognizant of come springtime. It's hard in the winter, I tell you, with editing. It's hard. But come spring,
Sounds like pirate.
it's
It's hard.
It's hard. I got to walk. I got to do things to build stamina again, build endurance, and booking a trip like this is wonderful incentive to be in shape, which is an all round. I mean, it helps our mindset and who we are in so many ways. So, and it's something to look forward to. It's funny, when you book a trip like this, now whether it's a workshop or a tour or just a destination that we're going to, it's something that lightens the load for months ahead of time. We know what's coming. We're excited about this vacation. We're preparing for this vacation. So keep that in mind. Another thing too is, to make sure you read the insurance and the liability waivers and all that fun stuff.
What you can use a workshop for or a tour for too is that oftentimes get you acquainted with an area. It's the best. Is that it?
That was it.
That's the best way to go figure it out. I mean, because a lot of these places are hard to figure out. And if you can go with someone that knows, do it. Don't expect to get much. Just expect to learn, and maybe you'll get some good stuff. But then you can either bank it for next year because now you have some knowledge, or you come back a week later. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But tours and workshops are oftentimes really good spots for that, or good times or good activities to just build that knowledge base.
Mm-hmm.
Guaranteed to learn. It's a new destination, a new place, different species. Open mind again, be there and enjoy the moment. Stay positive. Even if it's not working right then, there's rain for 2 days, you don't know what the next day has in store. Just be in the moment. But you can learn so much about a destination, and potentially, depending on its accessibility, do it in the future yourself or with a friend or two as well. It's a good way to research. I know of people who have done tours for that very reason.
Yep. We used to, if we had a spot where we wanted to go and either there wasn't a workshop or a tour opportunity, what we used to do is we would get a group of people that were all like-minded, want to do the same thing. We're all about the same fitness level. We would say, okay, we want to go here. Oftentimes we would try to hire a guide when we got there. So it's not necessarily a workshop or a tour, but we have this like-minded group that wants to photograph the same thing. An example was we wanted to go in the backcountry at Katmai. We didn't want to go to Katmai where the falls and all the people, and we wanted to be in the backcountry. And there's tons of bears back there, but you don't know. That's where that bear guy got eaten, Treadwell, Timothy Treadwell. You don't know these bears. You don't know what their temperament is. But we found a guy that would do tours through float planes, daily tours, and he kind of understood those bears. So we hired him to go with us for a week and camp with us. And you think, oh, that's way out of budget. It wasn't that. It didn't cost that much because we were spreading the amount. Everybody spread the cost. So maybe you're spending $20 or $30 per person to have that person out with you. But we were way more comfortable with these bears because he knew what these bears were. He's like, oh, yeah, we're cool here. These bears are fine. And I think that's another way it's not necessarily a tour or a workshop, but it's a way to kind of create your own and have some sort of peace of mind. That's
smart. Yeah, there's a place that I'd love for our podcast to go. I mean, there's so many, but in Labrador, and there are polar bears around there, but I know somebody who lives up there who works as a guide up there. It would be the same kind of thing. So we could go and hire him for the week or 10 days. But the thing is, he knows the land. He knows where to go, where the vistas are, and that kind of situation, that local knowledge. So, I mean, it's not necessarily a formal tour or workshop, but it's another way to approach these things. I'm glad you brought that up. It's another option.
Right.
But definitely, I mean, there's so many destinations that it's a big business now for tours, right? So a lot of opportunity for people to have amazing experiences out there, just to do the research and be careful what they're booking and look for references
at all levels.
People that have whether been before, if they know friends that they trust that have had that experience and will recommend it. I mean, that's the best because you actually know who the reference is too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess in the springtime, one of the things that I have a lot of is two species that I have a lot of are the grouse and the swift fox. So I have people asking me all the time to go out, and I do tours / workshops. It depends on the level of photographer. The one thing is we go to private land that I have the only access to. So because of what you guys were talking about earlier, I don't want people researching locations and then bringing big groups of people back, because these are sensitive species, and it depends honestly on the group of people that I'm taking in there, whether or not we photograph from the vehicle or we are on the ground in blinds. And when I'm with friends, with people that I trust, with people that I know, we'll ghillie suit up and we'll go kind of get in there nice and early, sit a little bit closer to where the lek is. But if I'm with another group, we'll be a little further back. And if we're not in a vehicle, then we are in a photo blind. And just so that we don't disturb the birds or disturb the den, if it's a swift fox. And, we'll talk a lot on the way out about behavior. We'll talk about the kind of shots that you're going to want to get, where you're going to want to position yourselves, how you're going to want to observe these birds, what kind of behaviors that they have, if it looks like they're getting alerted, that kind of thing, so that when people see this, they're not surprised. Number one. Number two, when they see certain behaviors, they just stop moving completely. And that's the kind of thing that you want to ask if you're looking for a tour guide, that you want to ask those references. Are you out in the good light? Because there's a lot of places in Africa that you can't even go out until a certain time in the morning. And so you've basically missed the golden hour. You miss the good light, and you have to be back out of those places, before the good light in the evening. So is that even a possibility? The amount of money that you're going to have to spend to go to Africa, I'm not going to spend that money if I don't know that I can be out there when the light's good.
Yeah. I had that happen in Ngorongoro Crater. You can't go in there. You can, but like me, I didn't know. We didn't do a full on tour. We just hired a guide to go with us. Mm-hmm. And they don't open the gate until, I don't remember what it was, 8:00. So you don't even get down there until 8:00, or get on the road to go down there till 8:00. Same in the Serengeti. They have gates. You wouldn't think this, right? Being, unless you're there, you don't know. They open the gates to the Serengeti at a certain time. So we had to wait. So yeah, I think there's all that kind of stuff that you need to keep in mind. And when I say use it as an opportunity to go learn, that is in certain areas. Like with what you're doing, you can't do that because you're on private ground and you just can't, there's no access. So that's the benefit of going on a workshop or tour with you, is you get that access. That's part of what you're paying for, is your expertise, but also that access to that area. So
and understand that, I'm asking you for money, but I also have to pay those landowners for that access as well.
Right.
So there's a lot of costs associated with doing tours, plus insurance, access, gas, vehicle damage potentially. So there's a lot of potentially. There's a lot of costs involved. So it's, that person is not necessarily making every penny that you pay them.
Oh, for sure.
They're forking some of that out as well. And so those are, I guess, I don't know if we're ready to throw this out there, but we're looking at doing some workshops and tours with the podcast. We've got some announcements that'll be coming up here. One of them potentially very soon. Mark's ready to go. He's out. One of them potentially coming up very soon, and it'll be a very limited opportunity. And then another one that will be coming up in 2021, just because of what we are going to have to do, what we are doing now, in trying to ensure we've got all the logistics taken care of to do this workshop. And it will definitely be a workshop, and it will definitely be an adventure, and kind of a bucket list opportunity for folks. So I'm hoping that those things come together and we can get them announced right away.
What do we do?
Do you want to?
You can't do that. You can't put it out there. I mean, how many sitcoms have you watched where they say, "Hey," and then they stop? No.
Tune in next week.
I see what you're doing. You're bringing people back.
A teaser. Yeah.
To
So
be
the one,
continued.
the one this year, we have not confirmed dates yet. But we are looking at taking a few people. It will be limited to Alaska to photograph marine mammals and potentially some bears, depending on when we get the dates secured. I don't know for sure yet, but the bears will be the potential. The marine mammals opportunities that's something that we will do. It will be at some point in July. You can email us at the Wild and Exposed, the contact sheet on the website, if you're interested in doing something like that in July, because it will be first come, first serve. But again, the details are not spelled out yet, so stand by.
We're looking to have a lot of fun, and we just have to map it out. But time frame wise,
Right.
we're pretty close. And
Yeah.
as far as expectations and experience, we've got that mapped out. And I'll tell you, I mean, after spending 2 weeks there last July, I had a ton of fun in the diversity of wildlife. And the bear stuff, that was awesome. I hope that you've enjoyed hearing some of our insights on photo tours and workshops. As always, do your due diligence and thoroughly research all aspects of your travel plans. In closing, I'd like to thank our talented and hardworking producer, Missy McKenzie, for all that she does to create this podcast for your listening enjoyment. I would also like to ask that no matter which podcast platform you're listening to us on, to make sure to click the follow or subscribe icon to stay up to date with our newest releases. It's free. And make sure to give us a positive review, that thumbs up or that 5-star rating, as that allows us to continue to do what we love to do and to bring you these podcasts on a regular basis. Please spread the word of our show, and we invite you to share our Wild and Exposed Facebook content with your friends and family. You can see more of our team's content on Instagram, Facebook, on our YouTube channel, and of course on our website at wildandexposed.com. Until next time, you've been listening to Wild and Exposed Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.